a spiritual teacher, we know that in order to teach properly, you have to do it yourself. And I think that's true of anything, right? Like if you're going to be a mechanic and you're going to teach how to fix a car, you probably should also be fixing cars yourself because you can read about it in a book, but until you apply it, you don't understand the deeper meaning of what that is. You don't have the understand. Why is it that we do this? What happens when we do this? Are there things that happen or could happen or should happen that are not in the book? Right? Like how are we bridging the very sterile knowledge of what we want to do, bridging that into the practicality of actually doing it? So sometimes we default on one or the other, right? Like the higher learning of whatever you love versus the practicality of what you love. And then there's a balance between those two things. Sometimes people default too much into the practicality of it. Like, oh, I don't read those books. I just figure it out on my own. That's all well and good, but you're going to miss out on some of the things that they could have taught you that you actually ended up kind of ruining some things that you didn't have to do if you had read about it. You would have known that that was going to happen, and then vice versa. It's like you can't read about paradise in a book and know what that is. You have to live it too. Um, and that's the balance, I think, for anybody who has a passion that they want to uh, share with someone else. And that really is all that learning is or teaching is experiencing your passion and then sharing it with others to help them have the best experience they could have. That's why I do what I do, because I know spirituality can be very confusing to navigate how exactly to get into that. And it is different for every single person. And there's some things that are more universal, and then there's some things that are more specific. And in any field that you do, there's a point where you graduate from the general basics of it, and then you have to move into the nuance. You can't take on everything all at once. You have to do them piece by piece. Like, okay, so right now I'm going to be immersed in this nuance. And then, 2 or 3 months from now, I'm going to be immersed in this other nuance, and then so on and so forth. And that's what makes a mastery of the whole thing. And when you're not willing to let yourself go into an experience that you don't understand and fail, potentially fail. And I think that's the biggest part of it, especially where the capitalism piece comes in. And I think sometimes when we get too immersed in that capitalism of like, oh, I have to look a certain way, I have to present myself a certain way in order to get clients because they're not going to believe somebody who looks like they don't know what they're doing. But it's like, you do know what you're doing though, right? But in this one little nuance that you've taken on, you are floundering for now. For now, you're going to understand it once you're done floundering. And then once you have that, you're going to go into the next thing, and into the next thing, and into the next thing, into the next thing. And it's going to be this really fun process over time. But if you're resistant to looking kind of silly at first, you're going to keep yourself from being able to master this thing that you love so much. And I think that's the biggest piece of it is like we focus so much on how am I going to teach people this? How like I want to be the teacher, that you're missing out on being the student at the same time, and missing out on the exciting parts of learning because you're so focused on having to be right. You're so focused on having to be polished and perfect and seeming like you know everything so that people don't feel alienated by you. Like, oh, she doesn't look like she knows what she's talking about. Yeah, but if you watch the video I posted yesterday, you would know that I do. Like this one thing that I'm talking about today, I'm brand new at. But yesterday's video, you would be blown away, right? And you have to let that happen. I think I've been resistant to that for a long time because we see all these other spiritual teachers that seemingly know more about spirituality than we do, but they're just good at that one nuance that you haven't learned it yet. Like you haven't let yourself get into it. But do you want to though, right? Some of these nuanced things, like I don't have a desire to do some of them, at least not yet. And then if I compare myself to the people who know a lot about stuff that I don't have a desire towards, that's just silly. Like, why are you doing that? You can't compare yourself. It's like comparing fruit to beef. Why would you ever do that? They're two completely different things. It's all food. It's all going to sustain us. They all do different things and they're there for different purposes and can be enjoyed at different times on their own. Or, I mean, I guess together sometimes. Yeah. Orange chicken. I don't know. Anyway, um, my point is like, there's a fear that you're going to lose the clientele that you have now if you look like you don't know what you're talking about in any respect. And I don't believe that that's true. At least now I don't. 2 weeks ago, maybe I probably still would have. Today, I don't. Today, I feel like that's any good professor, any of the good teachers that I ever had were also learning and admitted that they were learning too. And I felt seen by them. People won't feel seen. They won't feel comfortable to learn by you if you're acting like you know everything, that you're superior or better in some way. I just know a little bit more than you do. I'm not better. Yeah. Being humbling yourself in your spiritual practice, I think is really important, or whatever your passion is, really. I don't, it's funny because like I was learning crochet for a little while, and I loved watching the people who would talk about their mistakes and they would talk about how they were going too fast on this one project and then they had to decide if they were going to scrap it or not and how they could fix it. And these people were like really good, like they knew what they were doing. And then there were other people that I would watch and they would be so sterile and so like this is exactly how you do it, and oh, I'm really good, I never really mess up. And it's like, I don't really identify with you if you're saying that you don't mess up. That means you're not trying anything new, right? That means you're not branching out at all, and that's not exciting to me. And I don't feel resonation with that either. Yeah. I think it's like that. I think it's like that. There's like an energy there that feels like camaraderie. We're all learning. We all don't know everything. So we're gonna learn new things together. Yeah. Yeah, I like that.